Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On our deal with.
Ooh, yeah. Nah, nah, nah.
Suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Come and fill our hearts again, like the rushing of a mighty wind.
Yeah, blessings. Once again, you know the routine. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. All of that helps. So you don't know. Without any further ado, let's get started. Yesterday we were talking about Pan Africanism, the African Union, and just the whole reparations, the whole African Union reparations movement called the Global Reparations Fund. And we did a comparison of the Pan-African reparations movement with the FBA reparations movement, just to kind of give ourselves an idea of the pros and cons of each and how they kind of, compare to each other. So today I'm just gonna continue on the lesson about the Pan-Africanism, the African Union, and continue with the whole FBA discussion along with that, comparing their reparations movements, seeing which one is more of a seeing which one is more of a viable reparations program, and just taking it from there and see where it takes us, what ideas it brings to our minds, and just pretty much going from there. So we're going to continue the conversation today. The question is, first question I asked is the African Union a Pan-African organization? Yesterday's show, we spoke about Pan-Africanism, and one of the questions we were trying to answer was, what is something concrete that Pan-Africanism can show that it has delivered for Black Americans? So we're going to chat GPT it. It said the first question is the African Union a Pan-African organization? And chat GPT says yes. The African Union is widely considered a Pan-African organization, though with an important distinction between its political structure, the Pan-Africanist ideology it draws from. What the Pan-African Union is. So it is a Pan-African organization, but with clear distinctions, I guess, or maybe not so clear. I think there's a political distinction with the two. But regardless, it's still a Pan-African. It does follow Pan-African ideology. So let me repeat myself, since it's possible I wasn't being heard properly. ChatGPT says yes, the African Union is widely considered a Pan-African organization, though with an important distinction between its political structure and the Pan-Africanist ideology it draws from. What the African Union is. The AU was established in 2002, replacing the earlier Organization of African Unity, OAU 1963 to 1999. It is a continental union of 55 African states headquartered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Its goals include unity and solidarity among African nations. And I think that's the underlying foundational idea behind Pan-Africanism, is unity and solidarity among African nations. So in that sense, the AU is indeed a Pan-African organization. Another goal, political and economic integration of the continent. Again, that too, in my estimation, is a Pan-African goal. Peace, security, and human rights is the next goal. And the last one, promoting African development through collective action. I don't see where any of those wouldn't be accepted as Pan-African goals, from whether we're talking about the AU or just local Pan-African groups here in the diaspora. I think even Dr. Umar would agree with those points and say, yes, those are Pan-African ideologies or Pan-African goals. The Pan-African roots. Now it gets a little into the Pan-African roots. It says the OAU, the AU's predecessor, was explicitly inspired by Pan-Africanism, the belief that all African peoples, both on the continent and in the diaspora, share a common destiny and should unite politically, culturally, and economically. Again, the OAU, the AU's predecessor, was explicitly inspired by Pan-Africanism, the belief that all African peoples, both on the continent and in the diaspora, share a common destiny and should unite politically, culturally, and economically. Pan-Africanist leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, and Julius Nyerere, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, Julius Nyerere, that may even be more wrong, of Tanzania, were founding figures. The AU continues in this tradition by emphasizing African unity and rejecting neocolonial domination, maintaining ties with the African diaspora, which the AU recognizes as the sixth region of Africa. So we are the sixth region of Africa as far as the AU is concerned. Which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice, I think. And they also host initiatives like the Global Reparations Fund, which was started in 2023 with CARICOM, the Caribbean Community. Yeah. Then it goes in a little bit, then it says it is not pure Pan-Africanism. It says the AU is a state-based intergovernmental body, meaning its members are nation states, not all people of African descent worldwide. Its members are the countries. The countries are members of the AU, not individual people. True Pan-Africanism as an ideology often envisions deeper political unification, even a United States of Africa. You know, and I'm drawn closer to Pan-Africanism and the AU in this sense, that they want to name themselves after America, the United States of Africa. I mean, you gotta love it, right? I know I do. I appreciate it. I think that's a good move. And, you know, more than just taking their name, they may also want to consider taking the Constitution, the ideas behind the Constitution, because hopefully, you know, my view of Pan-Africanism is that they lean, you know, communistic in a way. But again, that's just my view of Pan-Africanism. And it may be unfair to say so, but the reason I'm saying so is because I know, given the Pan-Africanists that I know and that I encounter, they're all anti-capitalist, right? They're all anti-capitalism, which is why I'm giving them the communist label. And I don't think that's unfair. They get at least the socialist label. You know, I don't think that's an unfair classification to put them into. But that is the United States of Africa. Now all they got to do is take on our Constitution, copy our Constitution, allow people to have those freedoms that we enjoy here. And I think, you know, they'll have something worth celebrating. It says the AU, while symbolic of that vision, works more like the European Union, coordination, not full unification. So it's more like the European Union. The bottom line, says ChatGPT, the African Union is a Pan-African organization in structure and inspiration. It was created to fulfill the goals of Pan-African unity, solidarity, and collective progress. However, it operates within the practical limits of state sovereignty, so it doesn't fully embody the radical Pan-Africanist dream of a single African superstate. And that's the, I think we said that was what they would consider the United States of Africa, but the AU does not envision that type of super state with their Pan-Africanist vision. In their Pan-Africanist vision, we learned that each African state, Caribbean states, people in the diaspora get to retain their sovereignty in terms of their nationality. ChatGPT actually recommended, after I asked that question about the AU and whether it's Pan-Africanist, ChatGPT suggested that I look into the 6th region. And this is how the AU connects with the diaspora, like Black Americans and Caribbeans. So I took ChatGPT up on its offer and asked for further information about that. So we're going to learn about the African Union's 6th region concept. And ChatGPT says it's actually the clearest way that the African Union connects Pan-Africanism to people outside of the continent, which are Black Americans, Caribbeans, Black Englishmen, and just Black people everywhere in the diaspora. I don't think that their program leaves anyone out. It's pretty all-inclusive. So here's what it says about the African Union and the 6th region. It's the 6th region because Africa is split into 5 regions: the North, the South, the East, the West, and the Central. So this is the 6th region of the African Union. First thing is what it means. The AU officially recognizes the African diaspora as the 6th region of Africa, alongside the 5 continental regions: North, South, East, West, and Central. This was declared in 2003 Maputo Summit in Mozambique and reinforced at the 2008 Global African Diaspora Summit in South Africa. I would like to know if those were viewed or presented as Pan-Africanist summits. They may be, who knows? It says it defines the diaspora as peoples of African origin living outside the continent, irrespective of citizenship or nationality, who are willing to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of the African Union. So they want to deal with people who want to contribute to the development of Africa and to building the African Union. The main goal of the African Union and the creation of the 6th region seems to be the development of Africa. And it's all centered around the development of Africa. And given that it's about the development of Africa, I think that's kind of what makes me not choose to not consider myself a Pan-Africanist, because I'm an American and my goal is the development of America. I think it's in my best interest. I think that my nationality is what connects me to the things in life that matter the most to me. I get things from being an American that I can never get being a Pan-Africanist. So I see where the things that I value, I get out of being an American. And because of that, my main priority is the development of my own country. And I think for some reason, I have it in my head that Pan-Africanism wants me to redirect that shift from being an American to being more concerned about the development of Africa. And, whether that's true or not, I guess my goal is to figure out if that's ultimately what they're trying to do. I think that's what they're trying to do. They want me to have more affinity towards Africa than to America. And I don't think that's in my best interest as an American. So, for that reason, I'm choosing not to say I am not a Pan-Africanist, because I don't know if I'm willing to make that commitment. I don't even really make that commitment to Jamaica, where, the only development that I'm concerned with Jamaica is just the development of my own home and my own little corner of Jamaica. So, outside of that, I'm not a part of any type of organizations for the development of Jamaica on any type of, international level, where from here, my goal is to support Jamaica with whatever they're dealing with. I don't do any of that. I think that, my number one priority is me and my country. Because again, I think that when my country thrives, that's how I thrive as an individual, and that's how my family thrives. And I'm all in it for my family and doing what's best for my family. And I don't see any connection more important to me than my national connection and my connection to my nation. So we're talking about the 6th region, and the next thing ChatGPT goes into after mentioning that it's strictly about development of the continent and building up an African Union. The next thing is who is included, and it says African Americans or descendants of enslaved Africans in the U.S. So African Americans are part of that 6th region. I know FBA probably doesn't consider themselves to be a part of that 6th region, but I'm sure Pan-Africanists that are here absolutely count themselves as part of that. The next people included are Caribbeans, such as Jamaicans, Haitians, Trinidadians, etc. Also, Afro-Latin Americans from Brazil, Colombia, Cuba, etc. So, this isn't just about what we would consider Black immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean. The 6th region apparently also deals with Latinos, I guess what we would consider Afro-Latinos. So whoever falls into that category also is part of the 6th region. Because I think, normally when we think of Pan-Africanism, I don't think people consider Latinos to be a part of that. But the African Union apparently does consider them to be a part of that. Blessings to everyone that's coming into the building. As you come in, please hit that like button. It would help me out a great deal if y'all would just click that like button. It costs you nothing, but it puts joy to your heart when you click that like button. So if you can kindly do that, it would be amazing. If you're here for the first time, welcome to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. I got good stuff to share with you. If you click the videos, you'll see nice videos of very good conversations. We are building the channel like the AU was trying to build up the African continent. So, hit subscribe, man, and hit the notification bell. So you can hang out when I go live, or you can check out the videos if you miss me when I'm live, because I try to put them together for you. So we got African Americans, Caribbeans, Afro-Latin Americans in the AU as part of the 6th region. And the next group are Europe's African diaspora, such as UK, France, Netherlands, etc. And it says essentially all people of African descent outside of Africa who identify with the continent. And there it is, as long as you identify with the continent. So since FBA doesn't identify with the continent, it's safe to say that FBA would not be a part of the 6th region. The AU doesn't count them as part of the 6th region if they do not identify with the continent. And they themselves don't count themselves as part of the 6th region. I'm pretty sure about that. I don't think it's up for debate about that. Now, the 6th region and why it matters. It says it makes the diaspora part of Africa's future, not just its past. And that's a powerful statement. It makes the diaspora part of Africa's future and not just its past. Because again, the goal is to build the continent. Their goal is to build the continent. As certainly as, according to FBA, they built America, the AU wants the diaspora to help build Africa. So it's a building process. The next reason why it matters is that it aligns with Pan Africanism's idea that Africa and its diaspora are one people with a shared destiny. Africa and its diaspora are one people with a shared destiny. And, because we have a shared destiny, then we must be a part of Africa's future, according to the AU. And the last reason it gives for why it matters is that it gives the diaspora communities a recognized role in AU programs and policy making. Yeah, so, they're not just asking us to build Africa, but I guess we are being granted a recognized role in programs and policy making. So the diaspora does get to have a voice in policy making and to decide what the future of Africa looks like and what path it takes. The next thing are examples of engagement, and how I presume this is going to speak about how the AU engages with the diaspora or the 6th region. The first form of engagement is through citizenship gestures. Ghana's Year of Return in 2019 and Beyond the Return offered citizenship and land opportunities to African Americans and other diasporans. Also, there's the AU repatriation programs, encouraging diaspora investment, skills transfer, and business ties. The next thing it mentions is the Global Reparations Fund. And we spoke about that pretty in depth yesterday. The GRF, or the Global Reparations Fund, was launched in 2023 along with CARICOM, or the Caribbean Community, and it's directly linking African nations with Caribbean reparations movements. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Caribbean reparations movement may have come before the AU reparations movement. I could be wrong, but I'm going to say that they are linking on to the Caribbean's movement. And that's one of the questions I would want to ask as well. So, to revisit, the forms of engagement are citizenship gestures, repatriation programs, the GRF, the Global Reparations Fund, and the last thing is the AU Diaspora Parliament or forums, which are ongoing discussions about how to integrate diaspora voices into AU governance. So this, I guess, presents an avenue for, bringing to fruition the promise that people in the diaspora will have a voice in policy making. The next thing it speaks about are the limitations of the sixth region. It says the sixth region is symbolic and consultative. It doesn't give diaspora communities the same decision power, the same decision-making power as African states. Representation is still being worked out. How do millions of African descendants abroad vote, quote unquote, vote or participate in AU structures? So those are the two things that it lists as limitations. It's gonna be, I think, really difficult to make the sixth region feel as if they do indeed have a voice and that voice is being heard. So the bottom line, it says, is that the AU's recognition of the diaspora as the sixth region of Africa is a Pan-African gesture that connects Black Americans, Caribbeans, Afro-Latins, and others back to Africa politically, culturally, and economically. And I keep saying, I think it's unfair to say that Pan-Africanism hasn't done or isn't doing anything tangible for Black Americans or for the diaspora. Because I think especially the idea of citizenship gestures, repatriation programs, such as investment programs, skills transfer, and business ties, I think those are indeed tangible things that can be, held up as Pan-Africanist victories, if you will. So it says it doesn't mean the diaspora has full AU membership, but it creates a formal bridge for cooperation on issues like reparations in form of the AU and CARICOM Global Fund, repatriation and dual citizenship, investment and development partnerships. And I think that's pretty respectable. I'm not mad at that at all. That sounds like a pretty decent plan. ChatGPT then requests or recommends that I look into how Black American leaders and organizations have responded to this AU sixth region idea. And that's a very good suggestion, I think, on behalf of ChatGPT. Is right along the lines of what I'm thinking about, or what I should be thinking about. I think sometimes my ChatGPT reads my mind. So I said, yeah, man, let's hear it. Let's see how Black American leaders and organizations are responding to this sixth region idea. I think that is pretty interesting. It says Black American responses to AU's sixth region. 1 is positive receptions, unity and reconnection. Many Black leaders and Pan-Africanist groups welcomed the Sixth Region as a historic recognition. Civil rights and Pan-African activists, figures like Julius Garvey, son of Marcus Garvey, praised it as a realization of Pan-Africanism, linking Garvey's Back to Africa vision with modern African politics. So the Garveyites are appreciative of these gestures, as they should be, I think. I think that these are real positive gestures put forward by the AU. You know, just what it speaks about with the citizenship, repatriation, investments, things like that, I think are a really good direction to go in terms of Pan-Africanism. I think this is the sort of Pan-Africanism that should be highlighted. I think that it's a shame that the Dr. Umars of the world kind of overshadow the great work that's being done here, or the great gestures that are being put forward here. Because I think this is really what Pan-Africanism is about and should be about. It's a shame I'm too much of an American to be a Pan-Africanist. But let's see how. Let's continue reading. Another positive reception is the Pan-Africanist organizations such as the Institute of the Black World 21st Century called it a vital step to formally include diaspora voices in African governance. And I agree, it's a good step. I don't see it as a negative step at all. I think it's at least looking to open dialogue, which is vital. So I'm not mad at that. I agree with the IBW 21. It is indeed a vital step. The next positive reaction or reception is that some African American religious groups, cultural and religious leaders, it says some African American religious groups, especially those with Afrocentric or Pan-African teachings, example, certain Black churches, Rastafarian communities, embraced the symbolic reconnection to Africa. I'm not surprised that the Rastas is for this. I think the Rastas absolutely embrace this. You know, I think I was a Rasta in a former life. And I think it's the Rasta part of me that's recognizing this and appreciating this. So I'm not mad at this at all. I'm not surprised that the Rastas appreciate it. And I'm not surprised that there are Black churches as well that appreciate these gestures. The next group that it speaks about that are positively receiving this are grassroots activists. Advocates for repatriations in the U.S. saw it as a way to globalize the reparations struggle, tying Black America to Africa and the Caribbean. So even grassroots activists in America are appreciative of these gestures. And again, I'm not surprised about that. I think even Dr. Umar would appreciate those gestures. Yeah, and I can't imagine, I'm familiar with a few Pan-Africanists online, and I can't imagine that they would have any good reason to not support these gestures. And the second thing it goes into next are cautious optimism, symbolic but limited. It says some U.S. Black intellectuals and organizations supported the idea but questioned its practical input. I'm sorry, let me read that again. It says some U.S. Black intellectuals and organizations supported the idea but questioned its practical impact. So there are people that aren't as receptive, or let me use the terms that ChatGPT says, they have cautious optimism. The first group are academics and scholars. It says many Afro-American scholars, example, Molefi Asante and other Afrocentric thinkers, noted that while recognition is powerful, the diaspora still lacks formal political power in the AU. Yeah, so they still think that all of this is just symbolic. There is no real power. You know, the talk of having a voice and creating a space where their voices can be heard is one thing, but whether or not anything that they say is enacted is something else. And there are people that are skeptical of that. There are people that think that this is just one big scam to build Africa. And I think FBA would be among those voices that say it's more in their interest to build up their homeland of America, and that this is just Africa's way of trying to draw funds away from America and into Africa, and that they don't really have any true intent of giving Black Americans any voice in the future of Africa. So there is indeed a lot of skepticism, I think. The next group are, or rather the next reason that academics and scholars oppose it is that they warn it risks being more symbolic diplomacy than real governance. Yeah, which is just another way of saying what I just said. So the next thing is Black political figures that are not so optimistic, or that are cautiously optimistic. It says some African American politicians and diplomats supported stronger ties, but others stress the need for the AU to deliver tangible programs, such as scholarships, business access, reparations advocacy, not just ceremonies. Not just ceremonies. You know, I'm surprised that they don't really acknowledge the citizenship gestures and the other repatriation stuff that's happening. But I don't think that what they are requesting are horrible ideas either. Scholarships, business access, reparations advocacy, stuff like that. But, you know, I don't see why it's asking too much for them to include those things. Because again, I think the AU will be taken more seriously, I think, or that their reparations fund will be taken more seriously by the diaspora when the African Union, you know, acknowledges its role in the slave trade and is the first to put something in that fund. I'm not accepting this talk of they don't have anything. They have many things. They have many things. They have so much that they've been colonialized for all that they have. So they do have stuff. They can offer, more of them can be offering citizenship, scholarships, business access, and even the reparations advocacy for local reparations struggles, if you will. So I don't accept that the AU or that African countries don't have anything to pay in terms of reparations. I don't accept that. Even if it's a little something, put something in the fund so that those European powers know that you're being sincere. Because if you don't acknowledge your role, you won't be acknowledged as being sincere. The next thing it goes into is, instead of just cautious optimism, there's actually skepticism and criticism, which is distrust of African governments. It says not all Black Americans sees the AU's sixth region as positive. And they are skeptical of African elites. It says critiques argue that many African governments are themselves compromised by corruption, neo-colonial ties, or repression, making the AU a weak vehicle for real Pan-African empowerment. And they just don't trust the AU. The discussion we had yesterday, the panel, most of the Africans and the African Americans, if not all of them, said they don't trust the AU. So that's a major problem for the AU. And I think it's going to always be a problem because corruption has been a part of Africa's, downfall for many, many years. So, and it's going to continue to be, because I don't know if I think getting reparations is going to be a lot easier than getting rid of the corruption that's in Africa. And getting reparations is going to be supremely difficult. But the corruption is really the main reason why there's this large mistrust of African governments. It also says some grassroots activists in the US say the AU is too controlled by heads of state and not the people. The AU is too controlled by heads of state and not the people. Yeah, the AU represents countries, they represent nations, they don't represent individuals. And that's the main difference between reparations that they're seeking and the reparations that FBA is seeking here in America. FBA is seeking reparations for individuals, and the AU is seeking reparations for countries. And the reparations money is going to go to the heads of state, and they get to decide what to do with those reparations fund. Will they decide to give out individual checks? I don't know. Who knows? I doubt it, but who knows? But FBA is asking for straight payments to individuals. They think that individuals have the right to do with the money as they see fit, because it was their ancestors that were enslaved, and it's payment for work they did as far as they see it. And certainly enough, the next skeptic group that they go into is FBA, Foundational Black American, the FBA perspective. It says some within the FBA movement reject the AU's gesture, arguing Black American struggle is specific to U.S. slavery and systemic racism and shouldn't be merged into a broad Pan-African identity. They feel that having this broad Pan-African identity takes away from their claim here, their individual claim here, that it takes attention away from it. It brings in other legal stuff that may take away from their case here, if you will. And so they just don't want to be a part of it. They see the AU's 6th region as symbolic Pan-African public relations, rather than addressing the unique claim Black Americans have on the U.S. government for reparations. So that's why they're not wanting to be a part of that Pan-African thing. They're more concerned with their unique claim that Black Americans have with the U.S. government. But my criticism to that criticism is that I think Black Americans also have a unique claim to the British government that enslaved them for longer than the U.S. government did. Let's remember that America came into existence in 1776. So their reparations claim is going to have to go from 1776 onward in terms of the U.S. government. I don't see where, if the U.S. government is to say it's responsible, which I don't think it is, but if the U.S. government is going to claim responsibility, it's only going to be from 1776 onwards. Those are the only ancestors that the U.S. government would and should have a right to say, or, a right to say, these are the people we're going to compensate. Before 1776, that was all the British government. From 15, if FBA claimed they were enslaved from 1526, that was the Spanish that did that. So they're going to have to go to Spain for their 1526 ancestors. If they're talking about 1619, that's the same thing. That's not the American government. That's the Spanish, Portuguese, and British governments. And I don't see why they think they don't have a unique claim there as well. It's just crazy to me. Like, why you don't see that again? And it's not as if that's a different case. That's a totally different case, separate from your local case against the American government. So I don't see, and I don't get why that's not important. It was explained. I've listened to viewpoints on, just the idea that they think it takes away from their other case, and it may, but I just don't get it fully myself. So the next thing ChatGPT goes into is the key examples of response. Hit the like button, please. Hit that like button. Do it now. Do it for Africa. Do it for America. Do it for the world. Hit the like button. Just do it. Just do it. All right, so let me go back. Key examples of responses. Supportive ones in 2012, the AU Diaspora Summit in South Africa included African American delegations who endorsed deeper ties. There were also some Black American professionals that have joined AU diaspora initiatives, especially around investment and trade. Yeah, I think there's a lot that can happen in the realm of investment and trade and citizenship and just repatriation overall. I think there's a lot of doors and windows that can be opened to people that identify with the continent and want to get that done. Because I've also said that I feel it's a joy to me to have a home in Jamaica. And, I would encourage anyone to have a home elsewhere, especially if you identify with that elsewhere. If you identify with Africa and you own a home in Africa and you get citizenship in Africa, if it's as meaningful to you to have that connection with Africa that I feel with Jamaica, man, do it, because it's an awesome feeling, I think. So just do it. And I think, I don't see anything wrong with that. I also don't see anything wrong with FBA trying to, state their claim as being American. And I don't see a problem with that either in claiming America as their homeland, because they don't have that national connection to Africa that Africans do. They have a continental connection, but they don't have a national connection. They have that continental identity that makes them Pan Africanists. And if they do that, great, they can become citizens of some nation and then have that national connection. But FBA, in my view, is trying to have that national connection to America. And I'm not knocking them for that. The only, I do knock them for that, in that they just refuse to not call themselves just American. And I think that they are not as patriotic as they could and should be. But the fact that they are claiming America as their homeland is a step in the right direction. And, baby steps, I guess. So I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all. But again, we are talking about key examples of critical or skeptical responses. It says critical responses. So those were the supportive responses where people were interested in those investment and trade stuff and just having closer ties. But the critical ones are that at the grassroots level, groups like certain FBA and ADOS activists openly reject AU diaspora integration, stressing that Black Americans, I'm sorry, let me read that again. So the critical skepticism at the grassroots level, groups like certain FBA and ADOS activists openly reject AU diaspora integration, stressing that Black Americans must focus on the US government's debt to its formerly enslaved population. So, yeah, their main goal is, listen, we're only concerned with us, bro. So that's what that is. I think I've said enough about that and the FBA's criticism and just their lack of an urge to identify with the continent. And I think the main reason that is because they don't have that national connection. You know, they're just Americans, Black Americans that need a national connection in order to have that continental connection. And there are some that I guess don't. There are some that get their DNA test and their DNA test says 68% Nigeria and they're Nigerian, bro. And that does it for them. But there are others like FBA that be like, listen, man, that DNA stuff is for entertainment purposes only, and they're not entertained. But it is what it is. It is what it is. So the bottom line, as far as ChatGPT is concerned, the bottom line is that many Black leaders view the AU's 6th region as a Pan-African milestone, a bridge connecting Africa and the diaspora, especially in global reparation struggles. Others see it as a symbolic but weak. Others see it as symbolic but weak, unless it provides real political representation, economic benefits, or reparations leverage. Yeah. Oh, it says a vocal segment of Black America, especially FBA and ADOS voices, rejects it, focusing instead on securing reparations within the US rather than aligning with Africa. And it goes on to makes other recommendations, but I rejected them. I had enough. I think, that's pretty much what I was looking for, is just seeing just how it's being received, how the idea of being the 6th region is being received. And, the reception varies. There are those that are quite receptive to it. There are those that are cautiously optimistic. They like it, but they're cautious. They are having trust issues. And then there are others that are just like, nah, bro, we don't need it. We're good over here. And so that's where we are.
I want you to listen very, very carefully.
Tell the youth them to be strong. You can't tell the youth them to preach wrongs. While you try it on these lands, just remember every man is equal. Yeah. Each one teach one, and our Father God, him are the only done. So make we ease and reason. Smoke trees, span the ends, all the deep meds. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's the government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Yeah, bigger heads no love people again. Them worse than Hitler them. Me see friends now reason again. Vex through whistle a blame. More time it hurt me if see how the face. Deal with the eagle of them. Regular me see it a pain. Regular me see it a pain. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people. Social commentary, drop that one, your principle, you don't know. The global will come and do it. Some people life every day, it's stress. The high price from JPS, that topic is currently. Jah alone, him a go help you. We need food and we no healthy. We are feel the pain, beg you protect we. In our life we have no envy. Take a look at life and don't close your eyes. Sometimes things happen and it's no surprise. And I just, so it go, so it go, so it go, so it go. It's a government, no have no heart, them no care about poor people.